Ethan had always been an ordinary man, a small-town mechanic with big dreams. He never expected anything extraordinary to happen to him. But that all changed one evening when he found himself deep in the woods, far from his usual path home. It was a dark, cloudy night, the moon barely visible behind the thick clouds. The air felt heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. He had been working on an old truck, fixing the engine, when he heard a strange sound, a hum. Faint at first, but growing louder. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but as the sound intensified, a feeling of unease settled over him. His heart raced as he looked around, but all he could see was the endless line of trees. Something didn't feel right. Suddenly, the hum turned into a low, vibrating pulse that seemed to come from beneath the earth. Ethan's curiosity got the better of him, and he followed the sound, walking cautiously towards its source. After pushing through the thick underbrush, he came upon a clearing. In the middle stood a strange object, a glowing stone embedded in the ground, its blue light flickering like a heartbeat. Ethan couldn't look away. The glow seemed to pull him in, urging him to come closer. He stepped forward, his boots crunching on the dry leaves, and knelt down to examine the stone. It was smooth, perfectly round, and the light emanating from it was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was both beautiful and haunting. As his fingers brushed against it, the ground beneath him rumbled, and the stone began to glow brighter. He jerked his hand back, startled, but the stone's glow intensified, and before he could react, everything around him blurred. In an instant, the world around him disappeared. The trees, the sky, even the forest gone. Ethan felt a rush of air, a pull as if he were falling through an endless tunnel. His stomach flipped, and a strange sensation filled his head, making him dizzy. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing but darkness, until suddenly, the spinning stopped. He found himself standing on solid ground, his breath shallow, eyes wide in shock. The air was different here, heavier, yet strangely calm. Looking around, he saw nothing familiar. Tall, crystalline structures stretched up into the sky, their sharp edges glowing in shades of purple and gold. In the distance, strange ships hovered above the ground, their forms sleek and futuristic. The stars above him seemed much closer, twinkling in the black sky like diamonds. As he took in his surroundings, a soft, melodic voice broke through the silence. "Welcome, Earthling." Ethan spun around, startled. Standing before him was a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. A woman, taller than any human he knew, with skin that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. Her hair cascaded down in flowing waves, and her eyes were glowing with an eerie intensity. She wore a gown made of some alien fabric that shimmered like stardust. There was no mistaking it. This was no human. "I am Valora, the queen of this realm," she said, her voice calm, yet full of authority. "And you have been chosen." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what was happening. He wasn't sure if he was dreaming or if this was some bizarre hallucination, but the cold, alien world around him felt real enough. And then the queen's gaze softened, as if she was waiting for something from him. "Tell me," she continued, "what is it that you desire most?" "A wish, any wish, I will grant you." Ethan stood frozen, his mind blank. A wish? Could this really be happening? Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he stood before Valora, the alien queen, still trying to make sense of what was happening. Her presence was overwhelming, like an unspoken force that filled the air around him. Her glowing eyes seemed to peer straight into his soul, as if she could see every fear, every doubt he had. He wanted to run, to question how all of this could be real, but something in her gaze kept him rooted to the spot. I don't understand," Ethan stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "How is this even possible? I'm just a mechanic. I don't belong here." Valora's lips curled into a soft smile, her tone almost gentle. "No one ever believes they belong where they are meant to be. You have been brought here for a reason. Your choice will shape the future of both our worlds." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. He wanted to say something, anything, to make sense of this madness, but all he could do was stare at her. The power emanating from her was palpable, but it wasn't just her physical beauty or her overwhelming presence that took his breath away. It was the way she seemed to know him, to understand his thoughts without him even speaking them. I didn't ask for any of this," he said, his mind racing with confusion. "I just found this stone, and now you are here," she interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "What you desire, what you choose now, will decide everything." Ethan was silent for a moment, taking in her words. The reality of the situation slowly began to sink in. A wish, a chance to have anything he wanted. It was every person's fantasy, yet it felt like the most dangerous thing he could ever wish for. What if he asked for something wrong? What if the consequences were far worse than he could ever imagine? "Anything?" he asked, his voice shaky. "I can ask for anything?" Valora nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "Yes, anything within my power to grant. But understand this, no wish comes without a cost." The air seemed to grow heavier as her words echoed in Ethan's mind. What was the cost? He had no way of knowing. He could feel the danger in her promise, the underlying threat that had yet to fully reveal itself. But still, he was tempted. The power to change his life forever, to escape the mundane world he had always known. The possibility of having anything he wanted, anything he dreamed of. He thought about his life back on Earth. A small town. A job that barely paid the bills. He wasn't happy, not truly. But was this his chance to escape? To become something greater than himself? To leave behind the ordinary and step into something extraordinary? Ethan's gaze shifted back to Valora. She was waiting, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. He could feel her anticipation, as though she was testing him, waiting to see what he would choose. I don't know what to ask for," he admitted, the words slipping from his mouth before he could stop them. "What am I supposed to want?" Valora's expression softened. "You do not need to know yet, but your choice will come soon, and when it does, it will change everything." The tension in the air thickened. Ethan could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't think clearly. He wasn't ready for this. No one could be. Yet, as Valora continued to watch him with those glowing eyes, he knew that whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating, as Ethan stood frozen before Valora. His thoughts were racing in every direction, but his mind couldn't settle on a single idea. What did he truly want? How could he possibly know what to wish for when his whole life had been spent just getting by? What could a man like him ask for that could compare to the cosmic power that Valora promised? She continued to watch him, her eyes glowing softly, an unreadable expression on her face. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that she was more than just a queen. She was an ancient being, one who had seen countless lives come and go, one whose existence stretched far beyond his understanding. He was nothing more than a speck in her vast universe. And yet, here he was, standing before her, with the power to change the course of his life forever. The wind around them stirred, sending a chill through the air. Ethan shivered, his fingers tightening into fists at his sides. He wasn't sure what was worse, the weight of the decision hanging over him, or the feeling that the universe was holding its breath, waiting for him to choose. I don't even know where to begin," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "I don't even know what's possible in a place like this." Valora's voice cut through his thoughts, soft yet commanding. "There is nothing beyond possibility. Whatever your heart desires, whatever you seek, it can be yours. But know this, Earthling, what you choose will not only affect your life, it will ripple through the very fabric of the universe." Ethan's gaze lifted to meet hers, his heart racing at the weight of her words. A universe? His wish could impact more than just him. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't just some trivial request. This was far bigger than anything he had imagined. "Everything?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Valora nodded, her expression unchanging. "Every choice, no matter how small, has consequences. What you wish for will shape the future in ways you cannot yet understand. It will influence not only your world, but the very balance of life across galaxies." The power in her voice was undeniable, and Ethan felt it settle deep in his bones. The weight of her words wasn't lost on him, and a part of him wanted to walk away, to refuse this wish altogether. He wasn't prepared for the consequences that could come with it. He wasn't prepared for the unknown that lay ahead. But then, something stirred within him, something that had been buried for so long, hidden beneath the monotony of his daily life, the part of him that longed for more, that yearned for a life beyond the small town, beyond the never-ending cycle of work and disappointment, the chance to do something incredible, to be someone incredible. His gaze fell back to Valora. Her presence seemed to fill the space around them, her beauty both alien and captivating. Her eyes burned with an intensity that made his heart race, and for the first time, he realized that the choice he was about to make could change everything, not just for him, but for her as well. The thought crossed his mind. Unbidden, what if I could change not just my life, but hers too? What if I could make a difference in her world, in her life, just as she is offering me the chance to change mine? Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the realization struck him. What if this wish could be about more than just me? Without fully knowing why, he found his voice again. I wish for something greater than myself. I wish for the chance to make a difference. In your world, in our world. Valora's gaze flickered, her expression unreadable. But her eyes, those glowing, ancient eyes, seemed to soften, just for a moment. The silence stretched between them, the tension growing thicker, and Ethan held his breath, waiting for her response. It was then that he realized this wasn't just about a wish. This was about taking a leap into the unknown, embracing the chaos, and allowing his fate to be intertwined with hers. And in that moment, he knew, no matter what happened next, there would be no going back. The air around them seemed to thrum with anticipation as Valora slowly stepped closer to Ethan. Her presence was intoxicating, as if the very fabric of the universe bent to her will. For a moment, he wondered if he had made a grave mistake. Could he truly handle the weight of his wish? Was he prepared to face the consequences of a decision that had the power to change everything? Valora's gaze never wavered from him. There was a deep intensity in her eyes, as if she could see into his very soul, understanding all his fears and desires without a single word spoken. She had granted him his wish, but she didn't say what the cost might be. She didn't need to. The cost was already there, hanging in the air between them. A silent promise that would soon come to light. You understand, don't you? Valora's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the thick air, sending a shiver down Ethan's spine. Nothing is without consequence. Nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Ethan nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always thought that wishes were just about gaining something: power, wealth, love. But now, standing before Valora, he realized that the true cost of his wish wasn't in the price he would have to pay, but in the ripple effects it would cause. He could feel it in his bones. The universe was shifting, adjusting to his choice, and it wasn't going to be an easy ride. I know, he replied quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty, but I still want this. I want to see what happens when I make a choice that matters. Valora's lips curled into a faint smile, a mixture of amusement and something deeper, more complex. You are braver than I expected, she murmured. Most beings would be too afraid to ask for something like this, too afraid to risk their fate for the sake of something greater. For the first time since they had met, Ethan felt a flicker of confidence. He wasn't just a man from a small town anymore. He wasn't just a mechanic, fixing broken machines in a quiet world. He was standing before a queen, someone who had seen worlds born and die, and yet she was now looking at him, waiting for him to decide how their future would unfold. And he wasn't going to back down now. What happens next? Ethan asked, his voice steadier than before. Valora's smile deepened, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. Now, we see the consequences of your wish. You wanted to make a difference, to be more than what you were. But be careful, Ethan. You have asked for something that could change the course of everything: your world, my world, and the balance of power across the galaxies. The words hung heavily in the air, a warning and a promise all at once. Valora stepped back, her gaze still fixed on him. You will not be alone in this, but you must remember your choices have already begun to change me as well. And when a queen is changed, everything she rules is affected. The implications of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just asking for something for himself. He was altering the very foundation of her existence, too. The weight of that realization made him falter for just a moment, but he quickly pushed it aside. This was his wish, his choice. He could handle whatever came next. As Valora turned, her gown flowing around her like liquid silver. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, a faint rumble that seemed to come from deep within the planet. Ethan glanced around, his senses on high alert. Something was happening, something beyond their control. He could feel the tension rising in the air, thick and electric. "You have chosen your path," Valora said, her voice low and almost melodic. "Now, we both must walk it, together, and there is no turning back." Ethan swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. No turning back. That thought echoed in his mind, reverberating with both fear and exhilaration. He had made his choice, and now, all he could do was follow wherever it led, into the unknown. Ethan stood at the edge of something he couldn't fully comprehend. The world around him had shifted, and it was as if time itself had bent to Valora's will. The once clear skies now shimmered with colors that didn't belong, hues of violet and silver swirling like liquid light. The ground beneath him felt alive, pulsing with energy as if responding to his wish, his choice. And yet, despite all the grandeur, a knot of uncertainty twisted in his stomach. He had chosen this path, but was he truly prepared for what lay ahead? Valora moved beside him, her steps light and graceful, almost floating above the ground. Her presence was magnetic, drawing Ethan in with every movement, every glance. He couldn't help but notice the slight change in her demeanor. The aloofness that had once surrounded her was now tempered with something softer, more vulnerable. She wasn't the all-powerful queen she once appeared to be, and Ethan was beginning to understand why. "Do you feel it?" Valora asked, her voice almost a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might break the fragile spell between them. "The shift in the universe? The ripples that your wish has caused?" Ethan nodded, unable to find his voice. He did feel it. It was as if the very air around them had thickened, charged with a new kind of energy. He had never experienced anything like it before, this palpable sense of change, of possibility, and of danger. The moment he had chosen to alter the course of his life, he had also set into motion something far greater than he had anticipated. "I didn't realize," Ethan began, his words trailing off as he looked at Valora. "I didn't know it would affect you like this." Valora's gaze softened, a fleeting hint of sadness crossing her face. "It was always meant to," she replied. "Your wish was never just about you. It was about us. And now, the weight of that choice is heavy on both our shoulders." The words hung in the air, and for the first time, Ethan realized how deeply entangled their fates had become. His simple wish had somehow bound him to this alien world, to Valora herself, in ways he couldn't fully understand. And as much as he tried to deny it, he could feel the growing connection between them, a pull, something undeniable that reached beyond physical attraction. It was as if their souls were intertwined, caught in a dance that neither could control. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I don't know what happens next." Valora turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. "No one is ever truly ready for what destiny brings, but we must face it together. And whatever happens, we must embrace the consequences of our actions." The silence that followed was thick with anticipation. Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out into an unknown future. And for the first time, he didn't know if he was falling or flying. The days that followed blurred together in a whirlwind of surreal experiences. Ethan had always thought that when you made a choice, you would simply deal with the consequences. But now he understood sometimes those consequences weren't just waiting for you at the end of a path. They walked with you, breathing down your neck, shaping everything around you as you moved forward. The universe, it seemed, had a way of responding to your decisions in ways you could never predict. Valora was different now. She had always been a queen, a figure of power and dominance. But since Ethan's wish, something had shifted within her. Her once steely demeanor softened when she looked at him, as if she saw him not just as the one who had made the wish, but as something more, someone who had disrupted her carefully controlled existence. They spent their days exploring her kingdom, a realm of towering spires and cities that seemed to float among the stars. The world was breathtaking in its alien beauty, and Ethan marveled at the sights, the strange flora that glowed under the moonlight, the rivers that flowed with liquid silver, and the distant sound of music that echoed from hidden corners of this impossible world. But despite all the wonder around him, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was slowly unraveling beneath the surface. Valora had granted him a wish, but in return, it was as if a part of her had been given away too. There were moments when he could see her struggle to maintain control over herself, moments when her expression faltered, and the weight of her responsibility seemed to weigh down on her fragile facade. She was no longer the unshakable queen she had once been, and Ethan couldn't help but wonder if that was a result of his wish or something more. One night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city below, Valora spoke in a voice that was quieter than usual. "I never thought I would feel this." Vulnerable, Ethan glanced at her, surprised by the admission. He had never imagined a being like her could ever feel vulnerable. "You've always been in control, right?" he said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "The queen, the ruler of all this." "I was," she replied softly. "But now I am not so sure." "Your wish, Ethan, it has changed something inside me. It has opened doors that I didn't even know existed, and I fear I cannot close them again." Her words cut through him like a knife. He had come here seeking a new life, a new path, but he hadn't expected to become so entangled in her struggles. His choice, his wish, had not just affected his world, it had impacted Valora's too. And now, he was beginning to realize that the consequences were far greater than he had imagined. "Are you saying you regret granting my wish?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with guilt. Valora turned to face him, her eyes deep with emotion. "No," she whispered. "I do not regret it, but I did not anticipate the cost of what you asked for. A part of me is lost, and that loss is something I cannot undo." The pain in her voice made Ethan's heart tighten. This wasn't just a simple wish anymore, it was a bond between them, one that had shifted their lives in ways neither of them fully understood. And now, they were both standing at the edge of something unknown, with no way to turn back. As they stood in the stillness of the night, Ethan realized the truth. No matter what happened next, they were no longer just two strangers caught in a cosmic twist of fate. They had become something else entirely, something both beautiful and terrifying. And in that moment, he wasn't sure if they could survive the storm that was coming. The storm that Valora had warned about was no longer a distant fear. It was unfolding before them. The air had grown thick with tension, a palpable shift in the atmosphere that neither of them could ignore. What had once been a world of possibility and wonder was now one teetering on the edge of chaos. And Ethan felt the weight of it more with each passing moment. Every choice they had made, every word exchanged, had led them to this precipice. Neither could predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain: there was no going back. The night sky above them was swirling with an unnatural glow, the stars flickering erratically as if reacting to the energy that now coursed through the planet. Ethan's thoughts raced. He had always felt powerless before an ordinary man with an ordinary life. But now, standing beside Valora, the weight of their shared fate pressed down on him like an unbearable burden. "I didn't ask for this," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the world around them. Valora, standing beside him, remained silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with both sadness and resolve. "You never asked for this, but your choice has shaped us both. My world, my destiny, was already set in motion long before you came. But now, with your wish, it has shifted. It is no longer just my burden to carry. We share it, whether we want to or not." Her words echoed in Ethan's mind, and for the first time, he realized the full scope of what he had done. His simple wish had tied his fate to hers, had drawn him into the very heart of an alien world, a world he was barely beginning to understand. And now, he had to face the consequences of that choice. "I never wanted to change you, Valora," he said, his voice full of regret. "I never meant to cause you this pain." Valora's eyes softened, but there was no denying the sorrow in them. "You didn't cause this, I did. I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to feel what I thought I could never feel. That was my choice. But it is true, Ethan. We are now connected in ways neither of us can undo." The air between them seemed to hum with this unspoken bond, a connection that went beyond words or logic. Ethan didn't know if he was ready for what lay ahead, but he knew one thing: whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. Valora took a step closer, her presence like an anchor in the chaos swirling around them. "Together," she said softly, "we will face what comes. And together, we will find a way to navigate the storm." Ethan nodded, the weight in his chest slowly lifting. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about embracing what they had become and trusting that whatever storm awaited them, they could face it side by side. The universe might have thrown them into this, but it would be their choice, their strength, that would guide them through it. And in that moment, Ethan realized, no matter the cost, he wasn't going to walk away from it. Not now, not ever.